Thanks. Sorry, I just got a notice there. Um, yeah, it's a really interesting project, but I think people are going to love it. Peter, are you doing the intro?
We're going to ask you to say a few words and to introduce Jonathan, who will introduce me.
Okay, so we should go, right? Everybody ready?
Let's roll.
Okay, so engaged, active group. We'll probably finish up early, right? Hey, thank you all for joining us. I'm Mark Platts. I'm president of Susquehanna National Heritage Area. We're both the nonprofit organization that works here in York and Lancaster counties and along the river to manage our congressionally designated National Heritage Area. It's also the name for the place, York and Lancaster counties. I see a lot of familiar faces on here. Some of you I've known for years and worked with. Some of you I've known only occasionally. And I think there's some folks I don't know. So really appreciate you taking the time to join the listening session. And it's a listening both ways, because I think we're going to start out with a fairly intensive presentation from Peter on the background of this management plan process for the National Heritage Area. But then we also want to hear from you all and listen to what you have to say in response to that. As many of you know, Susquehanna National Heritage Area, under previous names, has been around for almost 20 years. Since York and Lancaster counties were designated a Pennsylvania Heritage Area in 2001 by Governor Ridge at the time, and our two communities have been a Pennsylvania Heritage Area since then. We're one of 12 in the Commonwealth. And we started working as a nonprofit organization around 2002, 2003, starting out small, and now we've grown extensively over the years. We've done a lot of projects across both counties, but for the last 15 years or so, we've really been focused significantly on the Susquehanna River corridor that the two counties share. The river unites us, doesn't divide us. And we've also evolved into an organization that runs visitor programs and services on the river with the Zimmerman Center for Heritage, where I am now at Long Level on the York County side. And we also manage the Columbia Crossing River Trail Center in Columbia for the Borough of Columbia, which acts as a sort of general visitor center, particularly a gateway to outdoor recreation in the area. We do boat tours, as I was talking about earlier. We've been doing boat tours the last 3 years, and we're about to expand that effort next year with the new old boat that some of you may have read about in the papers the last few days. But overall, though, we are a management organization for the National Heritage Area, and that includes all of both counties. We expect through this management plan process that we will continue to focus a lot on the river corridor and things along the river, but we also expand beyond that again, as we did in the early days of our work, and reaching out to York and Lancaster and other communities. The two counties were designated National Heritage Area just 2 years ago, 2019, and that was after a 13-year effort to get Congress and the federal government to designate and recognize our area for its nationally important stories. This management plan process is the next step of that. We got designated, we celebrated, it was wonderful, and now we got a plan for the National Park Service and the Department of Interior to approve that will sort of be our blueprint for who we work with, where we work, and what we do for the next 10 or 15 years. We've had a great consultant team. Jonathan will introduce Peter and the other members of the team working with us for months now. We've had a project advisory committee. We've had stakeholder meetings. We've had our team go out and meet individually with places and organizations. Been a lot of background work. And the goal tonight, I think, is to present the results of some of that, the background of the National Heritage Area, some of the results of that and where we think we're going, and then get your feedback to that. So I don't know what else I was supposed to say, but that's my intro. I'm going to introduce our Vice President, Jonathan Pinkerton. Jonathan's been with us since same length of time as me, 18 years, since we got started way back in 2003 with staff. And Jonathan's our Vice President, and he is also managing our National Heritage Area planning process. So turn things over to Jonathan. You can introduce Peter.
Super. Hey, thanks, Mark. Welcome. Thank you all for taking the time to be here this evening. We very much value your time and look forward to the conversation we're going to have tonight. So thank you so much for being here. you know, part of my job as a project manager here for this National Heritage Area Management Plan is to make sure that we're, you know, engaging the public in this planning process. And so if there's thoughts that you have after we finish up tonight, at any point along the way, during the meeting, again, after the meeting, please do let me know. The idea here, of course, as you may know from plans and planning, is that, you know, good discussions and good dialogues are necessary for good plans. And so that's really what we're trying to get at. I'm also co-host for this meeting with Peter, which means I'll be keeping my eye on the chat feature. Most of you have become accustomed to Zoom, whether you like it or not, familiar with Zoom by now. So please do use that chat for any questions, comments. If you want to throw in any links to any information or resources that you think might be helpful for anyone on this call, please feel free to do that. And to also let you know that to be aware that this meeting is being recorded for our records, and to make sure if we go back and try to call from this any information, we have that available. So again, as Mark said, the goal here is to hear from you. Before we do that, we need to kind of tee things up with a presentation. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Peter Benton. Peter is with Heritage Strategies. Peter is a registered architect, and he has many, many years of preservation planning experience. He specializes in heritage area planning. And one of the cool, almost like a trivia related to Peter's experience, is that he was involved with a firm way back in the late 1990s, John Miller Associates. Peter was involved in the state heritage area feasibility study process that we did when being considered for state heritage area designation. And so with that, Peter brings a unique perspective and certainly some history, some experience, some understanding of our region that I think has proved so far very valuable to this process. Some things have changed and some things have not. And so Peter, thank you for being here and serving as our facilitator. As your co-host, I'll be here to help out as needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. As Jonathan mentioned, and there's as Jonathan mentioned, my name is Peter Benton. I'm with Heritage Strategies, and I just actually entered my partner, Elizabeth Watson. And one of the other benefits for me in working on this project is that I live next door in Chester County. So it's Lancaster and York Counties are a place that I've known for many, many years. And it's a real pleasure to be working at home. And I'm assuming everyone can see my screen share here. We have a PowerPoint. And I'm going to, and that's right, Jonathan, right? You can see the screen okay? And so this is our agenda, some brief introductions. We'll talk a little bit about the heritage area and the management planning process, and a little bit about what we've learned over the past really 6 or 8 months. We've been studying the area, and then we'll open for discussion for everyone to ask questions and give us some input. So the question is, what is Susquehanna National Heritage Area? And it is 2 things. It is a place, and it is also the organization, and it's a program. So a national heritage is both a place and a program for collaboration. The place is the National Heritage Area, and as the next slide will show, it encompasses York and Lancaster counties. But we're also recognizing that the organization, Susquehanna National Heritage Area, is leading and coordinating the heritage area effort. And so in the process of preparing this document and in our communications, we're going to use National Heritage Area when we're talking about the place. And we're going to use the acronym SNHA when we're talking about the organization and the program. And so as I hope you know, it's both counties, York and Lancaster, brought together by or divided, if you will, by the Susquehanna River, which is the common natural feature between the two. And what always strikes me about this map is the number of communities that are located within the two counties, and the character of those communities is a big part of what we are hoping to highlight in the National Heritage Area. So a National Heritage Area organizes programs for stakeholder involvement. The legislation, which I'll talk about in a moment, really talks about the coordination of partners and stakeholders throughout the heritage area in a common vision and a common effort. And it includes cooperative interpretation and educational programming, preservation and conservation and stewardship in general. There's a special recognition of outdoor recreation and public access to that recreation. And there's the opportunity to provide technical assistance, both between stakeholders, but also between the organization of the National Heritage Area and the variety of different partners and stakeholders. And we use the heritage area to leverage funding. The Park Service provides seed money, really, on an annual basis through the National Heritage Areas program, and that money is used to leverage other money that can be from a variety of different sources. We undertake regional marketing and sort of public presentation of the identity of the heritage area. We try to engage all of our communities in the program. And really one of the primary purposes of the heritage area is really to communicate to residents and visitors and help them to realize and communicate to each other the identity of the region. And there are a variety of different federal and state programs that we can use to coordinate with the National Heritage Areas program. The legislation that created the Susquehanna National Heritage Areas, the John Dingell Conservation Management and Recreation Act of 2018, which really was signed into law in March of 2019. It created the heritage area, which was the 55th heritage area in the nation. Has designated the Susquehanna National Heritage Area Organization as what they call the local coordinating entity. That means that they are responsible for assisting partners and stakeholders in implementing the approved management plan. And the legislation requires that a management plan be completed, which is what we're in the process of doing. The legislation requires that the management plan be completed within a 3-year period. And so we're coming up on that. We started last January, and we're hoping to have it completed this January in time before March of 2022, which would be the 3-year timeframe. When that timeframe, when the management plan is approved by the Secretary of the Interior, the full designation of the heritage area will be complete, and there will be additional funding available for the organization and for a variety of the programs. So the legislation is extremely important. We're writing the management plan to the legislation, and I'll probably mention aspects of that legislation as we move through this program. What's really unique about this heritage area, as Mark mentioned, is its history. As a state heritage area going back to 2000 and beginning planning in 1995. So this heritage area, most of the heritage areas are being created from scratch. So they're new nonprofit organizations, but the Susquehanna National Heritage Area is very unique in that it already has a wide range of programs and a long history of planning and development of those programs. I think the part of the Captain John Smith Chesapeake National Historic Trail was an important aspect of this, sort of added onto the state heritage area. And also in the strategic planning in 2008, the heritage area decided to really focus on the Susquehanna River, and simultaneously created a feasibility study that was really the impetus for the designation as a national heritage area. And that in part was related to the Susquehanna Gateway sort of a series of initiatives. The Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape, a DCNR program that many of you are probably familiar with, was really instrumental in the focus and development of the Susquehanna River corridor as a destination, as a conservation focus, as an interpretive focus. And the heritage area has really been playing a strong role in that, along with other partners, such as the Lancaster Conservancy in preserving land. And we have listed here, as Mark mentioned, the Columbia Crossing Visitor Center and the Zimmerman Center that are both visitor interpretive destinations for the Susquehanna River. And so going forward, there are new projects on the boards. I'm not going to go into them in detail here, but the Mifflin Farm, which is in the process of hopefully being acquired, knocking on some wood here, by the heritage area. And then the Chief Uncas boat, which you were referring to, you see the picture on the lower right, is almost in the water, almost in our water. And will be shortly, and it is such a fabulous resource and program that the heritage area will be operating. So there's a lot that's already going on that we have to build on here. In creating the management plan, we've created a project advisory committee, and that advisory committee includes a variety of different representatives from a variety of different organizations, including 2 board members, representatives of the National Park Service. I think Jackie Kramer is on this call. From PHMC, Kurt Carr, Janet Johnson, and David Blackburn from Lands Valley. And then the 2 counties. In both cases, the counties, we have representatives from the county planning commissions and also representatives from the 2 history centers, Lancaster History and York County and the York County History Center. And of course, the Lancaster Conservancy, Phil Wenger, is our sort of lead conservation entity within the region. And the conservation is an extremely important aspect of the heritage area program. And then our representative from DCNR, Lori. So it's a really top-notch group, and we're trying to work with them as we move through the process and get their input on the program as we begin to define it and develop it. The planning team includes Mark and Jonathan, and my partner, Elizabeth Watson. Elizabeth lives on the eastern shore of Maryland, so she's right nearby as well. And then we have Judy Walden, who's a specialist in heritage tourism, who's assisting us with the sort of visitor experience. And Rebecca Murphy is helping us with community outreach, particularly with regard to the African-American community and African-American history and engagement with the region. And Lardner Klein Landscape Architects are assisting us with conservation input and mapping. So what are we looking to do? What are we aspiring to do with this National Heritage Area? The mission here and is the Susquehanna, I can't actually read it. The Susquehanna National Heritage Area connects the people in the communities of Lancaster and York Counties to one another, to the nation through the stories and resources and history of the nationally important places. The National Heritage Area works to engage visitors and cultivate partners and nurtures a long, strong regional identity. So we have, I may not read that correctly because the photographs are in front of the words for me, but we have developed this mission statement, which is sort of encompasses some of the aspects that I'm going to be walking you through here. The goals we have are related to, in part, resources and identity. That is to sustain and enhance the sense of place and the identity experience across the entire National Heritage Area. And one of the challenges that we have is that the 2 counties have often felt of themselves as entities unto themselves. And so we're trying to bring them together with a single identity, regional identity under the National Heritage Area banner. And that's done in large part by storytelling, by research and education that enables audiences to enjoy and appreciate its historic sites, natural areas, resources, and communities. So identity is an important aspect of what we're trying to convey in the National Heritage Area Program. I just don't know whether I just went through 2 slides. The benefits are to offer healthy and natural resource. I'm going to reduce the photograph so I can see the slides full. Foster healthy natural resources and healthy human relationships with that. Natural resource aspect of the plan is very important. That involves conservation and stewardship of our natural resources. We look to stimulate the economic economy of the region, both regionally and locally, through heritage tourism, and emphasizing the importance of the area's resources and identity in that economic vitality, really in a variety of different ways, and featuring the area as an attraction and a unique place to visit and to live. It always, many of the heritage areas focus primarily on heritage tourism, and we will be no exception to that. However, our real target is residents. That's conveying the idea of the heritage area to residents and the sense of identity and the importance of the stewardship of resources to residents for their preservation and appropriate treatment. We look to make it easy for people to move around the National Heritage Area and find their way and maintain the awareness of the region and its resources and identity. And that can be done through a variety of different ways, both signage and digitally and through other ways. And we're looking to build the capacity of organizations and communities and really our networks to work in concert with the vision and mission and goals of the National Heritage Area. As I mentioned, it's really a partnership program, stakeholders working together toward each with their own mission and their own interests in mind, but working collaboratively with others toward common ends. And we're looking to build a strong constituency of these partners and supporters that can act to protect and enhance the heritage area's resources and identity. So the management planning process has been really fun to go through. It always is, because we learn so much about the region. Even though Elizabeth and I really live next door, we really get to dig into the communities and the landscapes and the resources. So over the past 8 months, we've been looking at the stakeholders and programs. We've been visiting communities. We've been exploring, looking at the historic resources, understanding the land protection mechanisms and organizations that are in place, looking at outdoor recreational resources and the whole strength of heritage tourism and potential for heritage tourism within the region in our assessment of the region. And in doing that, we're looking for opportunities. And there are 4 areas of primary opportunity. The first, and this is not true for every heritage area. Each heritage area has its own strengths and opportunities. But here we feel that interpretation and education are really the way to lead the heritage area. And part of the challenge that we have in the Susquehanna National Heritage Area is expanding the organization's focus from the river corridor throughout the 2 counties. And that can really only be done through these partnerships. And it can be done, I think, through interpretation and education as a primary driving initiative. Preservation and stewardship, the conservation of landscapes, the conservation of natural resources. There's tremendous amount of activity going on there as right now. And that will continue as an opportunity for us to take advantage of and to bring stakeholders into the Heritage Area Program to work with. We're looking for community enhancement. What are the needs of communities? What are the opportunities for communities? And also the overall visitor experience of the region, taking into account the region's distinctive identity. And so with that in mind, what will the management plan continue and how will it be organized? So we have 5 or 6 chapters. The chapter 1 is really the background and the vision. It's the experience of place. That's the basic concept behind what we're behind the mission statement I read earlier, and the idea. So chapter 1 will lay out the background and focus of the Heritage Area Program as a whole. Chapter 2 is going to be what is this place? It's going to be a summary of how the landscape has evolved over time, both natural and cultural landscapes. What is this place as a region? What is its regional identity that we're looking at here? And so those first two chapters are sort of background for us. Chapter 3 is about interpretation and education, understanding this place. How can we understand this place better using interpretation and education in partnership throughout the region? Chapter 4, conserving this place, is about historic preservation, land conservation, community planning, stewardship in general. How are we going to treat and enhance the landscape in which we live, both cultural and natural? And then chapter 5 is experiencing this place. So that's where we bring in heritage tourism, recreation, wayfinding. How do we introduce we bring visitors to where we live and we introduce them. What do we show them? What is their experience? And as I mentioned, even though we may orient it toward visitors, it's really focused on residents and their appreciation of their own of the place in which they live. And chapter 6 is about management and implementation. It's about the organization, the partnership structure, how will funding move through the years, and what needs to be taken into consideration as required in the legislation and in the management of the heritage area as a whole. So I mentioned before the importance of interpretation and education. So what are the storytelling opportunities that we have seen over the past months as we've gotten out there? And I must say that my partner Elizabeth and some of our other team members have spent a great deal of time visiting the landscape and visiting sites and meeting with people and different entities throughout the area. And I think what really strikes me in our findings in this list is, in the first column, is the 86 historic sites and or historical organization. All different sizes, all different capabilities, variety of different themes and stories to tell, but all really different aspects of the regional identity. This is such a strength of the region, particularly with the 2 county historic societies as partners in the leadership program. The other aspect that really struck me in the second column is the archaeological record here. The focus of Native Americans for thousands of years along the Susquehanna River, different cultural evolutionary experiences. There's a tremendous archaeological record and a tremendous story that focuses on the river primarily, and is ripe to be told. And there's already initiatives that are being undertaken that are doing just that we can build upon. Other findings: the art museum, science museum, a whole contingency of places to visit that have capabilities, and we'll be interested to bring them together into a cooperative program where we can market them all and link them together, link their stories together, link their interests together into a regional initiative. So we've developed a series of interpretive themes, and because of all of the work that's come before, we've had to recast some of the themes that have been developed previously in the state heritage area and in the in the Susquehanna Riverlands Initiative and in the National Heritage Area Feasibility Study. But we think we've struck on 5 themes that are that will enable us to tell all the stories that are there for us to tell. And the first one is we call native lands, and that's what I was just alluding to about the Native American experience along the primarily along the Susquehanna River. There are places, there are initiatives, there are people, there are organizations that are there to tell that story. The second one is how the Susquehanna River shapes us. It's really the story of the river. And this is really the focus that the Susquehanna National Heritage Area Organization has been aligned with since 2008, when they adopted the river as their primary focus. So the Zimmerman Center, the Mifflin House will be brought on, the Columbia Visitor Center, and the various trails and parks really talk about the various aspects of how the river has shaped life over, really throughout its human history, but and particularly since period of contact. And not also talking about in all these themes too, about the natural resources. Then there's one that brings in a variety of different storylines, or which we like to call them, and stories. And we call it dividing lines and turning points, building places and changing societies. And from the photographs you can see here, the Revolutionary War is certainly one of those turning points that we experience. But another one really has to do with, that's really strong within this region, is the story of slavery, the story of abolitionism, the story of the Civil War, the story of Underground Railroad, the whole conflict of the mid 1800s, and how as changes in our society and the roles that different places and different people played in those changes. And there are others that are told within, you could bring, for instance, even the railroad in here as aspects of how the region has changed through economic and through social initiatives. There's a variety of different opportunities here that are available for us and available for partners to find a home in. My favorite, however, is an American cultural hearth, finding home, we call it. Is as many of you who live there are aware, the whole Lancaster York region was what we know as the Pennsylvania cultural hearth. It was a route of immigration from Philadelphia for immigrants coming through the area, and actually also the descendants of people who were living within these areas, moving westward down the Shenandoah Valley and into the Midwest, and taking with them their cultural patterns and the aspects like the Pennsylvania long rifle and the Pennsylvania barn. Sort of bringing a really unique aspect of our culture here and how it influenced the entire settlement of the Midwest and the nation as a whole. And then finally, we have the tale of two cities, York and Lancaster. They are unique within the region as cities and as industrial centers with, again, the railroad and the industry have changed over time, and how they grew and how they changed over time as distinct from the boroughs and the townships. So we believe that these 5 interpretive themes really enable us to tell all the stories within the region that we may choose to tell. And it also, I think, finds a home for all of the interpretive sites and interpretive organizations that are located within the area. And that is our focus, is to let find a place for every site and every organization to be able to tell its story within the overall interpretive framework. So with regard to preservation and conservation, what have we learned? And I think first of all, and most important, is the is the historic character of the region as a whole, the cultural landscape, the survival of structures, farms, communities, landscapes, and distinctive cultural traditions are major factors in the National Heritage Area's designation. And you can see those in the landscape when you're just driving around, perhaps more strong in my view than in many other places. And also that the state and the counties and the cities have well-established goals and programs for historic preservation. So there's a real framework for historic preservation, plenty to preserve and ways to preserve. However, what we find is that within the two cities, there are strong historic preservation programs, including National Register listings, use of the federal tax credit for historic preservation. But in the municipalities, those programs are not as strong, and there can be, and one of the things we can do in strengthening preservation is to help municipalities, both boroughs and townships, to strengthen their municipal programs for historic preservation as they continue to grow and develop. It's not an either or, it's a both. How do you grow? How do you develop? But how do you preserve those historic resources that are so important in our community identity at a regional scale or at a local scale? Conservation has been important, and there are ways to look at it that where our natural areas are really strongest, and that is really along the Susquehanna River and the Pennsylvania Highlands. That is where so many of our natural landscapes are currently existing, and become sort of a real structural focus for how we are conserving land within the two counties. And what's really impressive to us is the strength of the conservation programs, both natural landscapes and farmland. And looking at the farmland, they have been strong programs because the farming economy and the farming landscape is so important to the regional economies, that preserving of farmland has been a major focus in Lancaster, over 77,000 acres, and in York, 44,000 acres. Really strong programs that are part of the focus that we will have as a National Heritage Area, because when you preserve these landscapes, you're preserving the cultural landscapes. You're preserving historic resources, whether they're landscape resources or building resources. Preserving farmland is it also preserves our historic cultural landscape. And then we have such strong programs within the area. I mentioned the Lancaster Conservancy before, and their work, the Farmland Trust, the Lancaster Agricultural Preserve Board, the programs and the different organizations that are actually behind the preservation of these landscapes, natural and cultural, are a real strength. And I think that it's important to us that these organizations are strong and that they remain strong. And the role of the heritage area will provide them with support in their preservation of these cultural and natural landscapes. So the role of the heritage area is to really support this, and again, in our findings, the natural heritage inventory for both York and Lancaster just identifies so many sites and species, animal and plant species, that are there, and the 6 important bird areas. So there's no lack of natural resources to emphasize. And we recognize that these heritage inventories really tell us the priorities for focus in terms of species and places. And so bringing these together, the interpretive part and the conservation part, the stewardship part, what is the experience that that we have seen so far within the heritage area, and what are the opportunities for us to further enhance it. And I think I might have just, yes, I skipped a slide. First of all, we want to identify the two of the regional initiatives that sort of bring all the communities and all the places together: the Susquehanna River Water Trail, 53 miles, a national recreational trail, an important initiative that enables us to help us bring in, federal level resources. The same with the Captain John Smith Chesapeake National Historic Trail. A tremendous national initiative, and the Zimmerman Center serves as the focus, a visitor center, and a focus for that initiative within our area. And we'll be looking for river access and how to make the most of these designations, which we are so privileged to have along our portion of the Susquehanna River. And the other thing that has really impressed us is the initiative, the trail initiatives within the two counties. And, like open space, like preservation of farmland, trail initiatives generally have strong public support. And so these trail initiatives within York and Lancaster counties are areas where we can really focus for the recreational aspects, but also for the interpretive aspects and the conservation aspects, and additional trails that can be developed and have been developed on some of the conservation lands. So there's a tremendous amount here that we can take advantage of. And so our role, the National Heritage Area's role, is really to act in concert with the tourism initiatives to promote this region for the interpretation, for the natural resources, for the recreation, for the storytelling at our interpretive sites. And so we'll collaborate with our traditional tourism promotion entities within the region. Our focus will be on heritage tourism, and we'll focus on planning and development for the interpretive sites as part of our interpretive and educational initiative. That's sort of the heritage area role, is to ensure that we, number one, in these three bullets, that there is signage and identifying points of interest. That's actually required in the legislation, so we will be working on that. Work in concert with the counties, municipalities, PennDOT, and others on signage and wayfinding. We will look to have entrance signs introduced on major roads entering into the National Heritage Area, and we'll focus especially on digital and internet enabled wayfinding means. There is a whole wayfinding system that was developed in the 2000s and tried to be implemented, but was really blocked by PennDOT, and it's just sitting there on the table waiting to be implemented. And that may be an initiative that the counties may wish to take up, but would really require county leadership to do so. What we can really do, especially in the initial phases, is to translate that into a digital format, which is the way people are really doing wayfinding now anyway, and sort of meet the wayfinding role through that. So, what priorities are we undertaking? First of all, we want to provide a high quality visitor experience within the Susquehanna River corridor, as the heritage area has already been doing, continuing that role, introducing the river corridor to residents, to visitors, and continue to increase and enhance that visitor experience. Then we want to develop interpretive programs across the region in the two counties. We're envisioning that, many of you have already probably participated in a couple of our web meetings where we using in collaboration with the two county historical societies to bring a common interpretive framework to the region and to link all of the sites to that. And then the heritage area job will be to send visitors and residents to the interpretive sites through that interpretive structure. Preserving and celebrating the region's remarkable historic and cultural resources and landscapes. We are not only looking at historic sites as interpretive venues, but actually communities as interpretive venues. Certainly the two cities, but also especially the multiple boroughs, which have such strong and beautiful character. How do we interpret them? Not only at historic sites within those communities, but actually in public spaces through outdoor exhibits and artwork and so on. We want to coordinate the planning, the public access, and the interpretation associated with the Susquehanna River and its multiple designations of Captain John Smith, the Riverlands, the River Trail. And we want to spearhead the development of a robust heritage area wayfinding system, as I mentioned before, focusing really first and foremost on the digital and outdoor interpretation aspects of that wayfinding through the internet and through actual physical experiences in the field through digital and on-site exhibits. Which brings us already to the discussion point here. What programming? So these are just some questions to, I want to open up.
Yeah, Peter, I think everybody's got to go, whoa, absorb all that. That was quite a run through. So everybody take a breath and then Peter can.
So we want to answer your questions about this, but we also want to hear your thoughts and your ideas about how you might wish to participate in the program. I'm sorry if I went too fast there, but I could have gone on. So
it's a lot to cover. You did an amazing job covering all that.
So I think we actually have everybody open to be able to speak. So I would ask you to certainly begin speaking, and we'll start taking questions. But if people are speaking at the same time, I would ask you to defer to others, because we're not. I don't think we're not muting anybody. So opening the floor.
Peter, can I jump in just to start it off? I'll start with some pretty simple things.
Yes.
I'm the borough engineer for both Lower Windsor Township and Wrightsville Borough. Obviously, Wrightsville Borough is in the thick of everything. Lower Windsor Township, Jonathan, Mark, and I, and probably Liz, are within about a mile of each other right here. I think, first of all, it's a great plan. I think it's a great, you're heading in the right direction. I think you've hit a lot of the great ideas and initiatives. I'll just focus on a couple. One of them is I'm in municipal engineering, so we represent 53 municipalities. So I'm coming at it from the municipal standpoint and being the engineer in Wrightsville for 40 some years. One, the municipalities don't have an awareness of what they have and what exists there. Two, and more importantly, for your priorities, they typically do not have the resources to do anything about it. Mark and Jonathan have been involved with me in Wrightsville, and I think Wrightsville has done a lot in the last 3 to 4 years. But the challenges are always the same. Who's going to lead the project and who's going to pay for the project? These municipalities do not have funding. So the only way they can use grant money is to find one grant that's a 50% match and find another grant that they can use to match it. And that comes with its own set of challenges. So I think we have plenty of things that could be restored. Just one example, and Jonathan and Mark are both aware of this one, Wrightsville just joined in the Trail Towns program, administered by the York County Economic Alliance. Wonderful program. because we've spent a lot of time trying to work with PennDOT to connect the York County side to the Lancaster County side. So you won't have just a water trail, you'll have an actual bike and hike trail. And so that's the critical stuff, but that takes a lot of time, energy, and leadership. And I personally think, and I'll end here, I personally think that's where the National Heritage Area can be the leading role in trying to figure out, okay, we know what we have. How do we bring it up to make it attractive? How do we, for visitors and residents? So I'll quit there. Mark and Jonathan have already heard that several times, but I live in this area. And then you have some municipalities that have no interest whatsoever in participating. Lower Windsor Township being one where we're sitting. They don't have the resources or the desire. So who's going to do it if the municipality doesn't? So anyway, thanks for the opportunity.
Well, but let me start, and then Jonathan, Mark. I think you've hit it exactly on what the role of the heritage area is. It's called the local coordinating entity for a reason, and it's to help provide that leadership where needed to coordinate, whatever the key initiatives are. And with regard to participation, it has always been our suggestion that you begin with the people who are ready to come to the table, and the people who are ready to begin to bring something to the table if they can. And you can't do everything for everybody. And so if a municipality is interested in a program, we would like them to step up and become partners in figuring out how to implement them with others. And if there are municipalities that aren't interested, then let them wait and bring them on later.
Yeah. I would only point out one other interpretive thing you have to keep in the back of your mind. If I didn't say this, Councilman Bear in Wrightsville would be really upset with me. There is a distinct tie between the Wrightsville Bridge and the Gettysburg Battle in 1863. So we have both the Underground Railroad, but we also have the Confederates got as far as the river, and Councilman Bear always had this thing about having a reenactor march from Wrightsville to Gettysburg in June. So anyway, I'll throw it out on his benefit.
Yeah, we are well aware of that.
Okay.
Don't they burn the bridge every year?
I think that was pretty drastic myself. They put lanterns on top of the piers. I don't know if they've done it the last couple of years, but anyway, there is such a huge inventory of stuff that can be done here, both cultural, historic, recreation, scenic, and we need to tie the counties together. And I think the Veterans Bridge project gives us an opportunity to do that. And I won't say there's anybody fighting it, but it's been a struggle to bring everybody to the table.
Hi, my name's Claire Storm. I live in Columbia Borough. And there are three things that I would like to just point out. I have to agree with what John has just said about funding. In Columbia Borough, we are in the process of expanding our riverfront park. And it, of course, is going to cost mega bucks. And the funding is a concern. That's one thing that I wanted to mention. The other two things that I want to talk about are two things that I'm personally involved in. And one is the Mount Bethel Cemetery in Columbia, established in 1730, 2 years before George Washington was even born. And how do you promote that? How do you get people to come in and just walk through the cemetery and experience the history? How do you get the word out, I guess is what I'm asking about that. At the cemetery, we do have different events that we put on, but promoting them is very difficult. The other thing is the Columbia Market House. That desperately needs promotion. People outside of the area need to know that we have a market house. I think the people in Columbia realize that. And I can't say that they're really supportive. Some are, but not as many as I would like to see. So promotion would be a big thing, I believe, and promoting these different things in all the boroughs, all the area, making people aware of the rich history that we have here. How do you do that? So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Claire. I think that the one of the things that the heritage area can and will do is promotion. And in terms of municipalities like Columbia or Wrightsville, what we will probably be doing is suggesting that each municipality essentially be given some assistance in preparing an interpretive plan for themselves, a very simplified interpretive plan. And then you identify the sites, you identify the stories, and then we identify the means. And the means can be, it could be exhibits, it could be programs, it could be a variety of different things. And then we put it together into a package so that, when we begin to orient people, visitors, residents, to the municipalities, they will know where to go and what's there for them to do. And certainly in Columbia, because you have the visitor center there, you have a great place, an easy to find place, to send people to. But then once you go to a visitor center, then where else can I go to learn about stories about Columbia or Wrightsville or Ephrata or any of the boroughs?
Are you saying, are you talking about the trail building at Riverfront as the visitor center? Is that the Columbia Crossing? Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm talking about the visitor center as being a place where you take people and then you tell them where they can go.
What visitor center are you talking about? Because the original visitor center is no more.
Right, it's currently closed. It's going to be reopened. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Kelly
think Peter's
Murphy.
referring to Columbia Crossing.
I'm referring to Columbia Crossing.
Okay.
If you have another visitor center, then we use that. That'd be fine. That'd be great. So, but what I'm saying is that we look at the municipality as an interpretive resource, if you will. What are the stories? Where can they be told? And how can they be told? And we would we would invite and provide technical assistance to each municipality that wants to participate in putting together a little plan that then can be interpreted as a high quality visitor experience.
Kelly Murphy here. I'm also from Columbia Borough. I used to be on council for 12 years, been off for about not quite 2 years now, but I'm also still an active member of the River Towns Committee. I wanted to thank Claire for touching on the Market House. And you just mentioned something, Peter, about the assistance being able to be given to businesses. I think one of the biggest problems going on with our Market House right now, it's a great space. It's been renovated. A couple of historic features that have been lost over the years were restored. So it's a great looking place, but it's not it needs to become a destination place. And I think the borough is currently in a partnership with Catholic Health Initiatives to operate it. And Catholic Health Initiatives actually is managing it, but I really think they need some guidance on how to properly market it, how to properly entice the visitors, not just to the trail, but to the area, to get that Columbia has a market house and a place to see, and how to get them in there. The second thing, so I'm really looking forward to that kind of assistance with them. The last thing I wanted to remark was, you are right, the last 2 years we did not have the burning of the bridge reenactment where they had the pots on the bridge because of COVID. But I know Dave's on here, so I don't know if he wants to speak or not, but we are planning on having it in 2022, COVID willing, so we say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Well, I didn't know that you really did burn down the bridge every year. I was just saying that.
It's a fundraiser.
I just,
But I think it's an important fundraiser. It's an important activity as well, because the bridge, obviously, like you said, it spans both counties. And I think it's one of the events that we have that really is on both sides of the river, not just on one side of the river. And it really is a way of, like you said, of pulling the two counties together. Sometimes it's hard enough time getting two towns to work together, let alone two counties. So that's a big thing that needs to happen.
mhm.
so I have been involved in the past with the Heritage area pretty intimately. And I know that my name's Betsy Buckingham. I live in York. And my understanding, I mean, the broad history of the two counties is it's almost overwhelming. And it's incredibly rich. And my understanding was that in 2008, the stories were too many to tell. And the focus on the river corridor was a story that neither county was really telling. So, and I think it has grown beautifully. It's rich. When people talk about the divide, the river divides the two counties, that might be true, but it's not true in Marietta, Wrightsville, and Columbia. I mean, that was my experience, that they've always felt that the river hasn't separated them. So I'm wondering, when I hear this story of telling the whole story of the two counties and the municipalities, that seems like a huge job. And of course, I'm assuming that to broaden the storytelling scope of the full geographic area, it would just, are they gonna, is the plan for the National Heritage Area to dilute their storytelling of the river and raising the profile of that rich area, or just extending it through partnerships with all the other storytellers, conservationists, preservationists that already exist? But what I was hearing was that the heritage area was broadening its scope, and it's overwhelming.
Well, the heritage area does have to broaden its scope because the National Heritage Area is the two counties, not just the river.
Right.
That said, there was the National Heritage Area organization will still continue to take its lead on focusing on the river as one of its primary themes. With regard to the other themes, we are looking to partners. We're looking for a partnership. That is, that it's not the National Heritage Area organization that's going to necessarily be responsible for telling all the interpretation. That's why you bring in the partners. So from a structural standpoint, from a partnership standpoint, we're looking at the National Heritage Area plus the two county historical societies with both strong, powerful organizations in our view, as a three-part partnership, leading the vast array of 80-some, historic sites, interpretive sites, also working with PHMC, Landis Valley, Stroudsburg Railroad, others, the strong partners in telling the story. So it's not, the Heritage Area's role is the coordinating entity. It's not their responsibility to tell all these stories, but through the management plan, we're looking to create an interpretive framework. And the National Heritage Area's role will be the promotion, that Claire was talking about, trying to promote it and creating high quality interpretive experiences. But really, we're looking at the partners on the ground are the ones who are telling the stories. Does that make sense? Under a common framework. And the partnership with the two with the two historical societies, which they have both been interested in doing on their own, has really been heartening to us. And so we really want to strengthen, look at those two historical societies as sort of leading their partners within their region and telling their stories. And we provide them with grants and technical assistance and maybe outdoor exhibits and things like that. There are small things we can do to help the smaller organizations tell their stories. Everybody has to be visitor ready. Does that make sense?
It does. It's still an enormous, it's kudos
Well,
to
the
them.
thing is, all these sites exist. They're already doing it. And
That's right.
So
To a certain extent, yeah, it's wonderful.
We're just
It is
trying to
wonderful.
bring
They
it-
do
we're
wonderful
trying to-
work.
it's maybe it's an illusion, but we're making it look like a coordinated experience. We want to make it a coordinated experience. So, part of that is to help individual sites develop their capacities over time. But, that's small grant stuff. But also help them connect their stories between sites. So you don't get isolated stories that are in a vacuum, if you will. They're all within this interpretive framework, and you'll find that one site has an interpretive relationship with another. So, it's I don't think it's quite as daunting as it may sound, because it's basically already happening, and we're just trying to bring it together into a common framework.
It's just a little bit less daunting than being a city council member.
Yes, much less daunting.
A great question, Betsy. Hey, Peter, I guess you can see that both Ms. Robbins and Mr. Harris have their hands raised. For
Oh, no,
questions.
I didn't realize that. Go ahead, just speak up. So who's first?
Mary Ann goes first. She had her hand up first.
All right, Mary Ann, I didn't realize that. So go ahead, please. Are you in? I think you're on mute. I think you're muted. Can you unmute?
My name is Mary Ann Robbins. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. And I'm the president of the Circle Legacy Organization, which is a 501c3 Native entity outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I'm from the Onondaga Nation, which is part of the Haudenosaunee, or what others refer to as the Iroquois Confederacy. And I've lived in PA for quite a number of years. And one of the things that I've noticed is the lack of a Native footprint in the area to tell the story of the indigenous people who inhabited Pennsylvania. I believe there's around 13 or so tribes. And how can we get that story out? We had partnered and worked with the Mennonite Historical Society to build a longhouse, which is located on the Hans Her property, which is 60 foot long by 20 foot high, a replica of what the indigenous natives would have been living in a winter structure. But more than that, we want to show the lifestyle and tell the story of the natives that were along the Susquehanna, what we lived in. We're not just artifacts. Show contact period all the way up to what we are today. So,
yeah, I think Mary Ann, I think my partner Elizabeth Watson has been in communication with you, has she not?
yes, she has, and she has been very helpful and has sparked a lot of conversation, not only with myself, but others. We have Debbie Saylor, who is a curator of the Indian Steps Museum, and also Joanne McLaughlin. She is from the Passamaquoddy Nation. And we also have other natives that have met with Elizabeth. So we would like to see how we can make sure we get that imprint in. One of, I think, is the sad thing is that natives have to be sanctioned by the government as far as federal versus state versus none. Pennsylvania has no federally recognized tribes because they were moved out or they left for other areas. So the natives that are here are an influx of many different nations. So if it's going to be based on the Bureau of Interior, and the money is going to be coming to the natives here to tell that story, it's like a catch-22. They have to get federal natives in order to give monies. And
Well,
so
we will be bringing, we're working intently on this topic. As I mentioned, one of the themes is native lands. And we've been working with a variety of entities to understand what the resources are and the stories that can be told. But we've also been reaching out to organizations like people like you and organizations like yours that are, and we've also been talking with the Park Service. And so we will be having a collaboration of both locally interested parties, recognized or not, just interested parties, as well as inviting the official representatives of the recognized tribes that are no longer living within the region, but might have an interest. So we are looking to do both local involvement and outreach to the tribes to see if they are interested in participating in the development of storytelling around the themes of native lands. And so what we're looking to, so the context that that Elizabeth has had and others have had with you about this management plan is just the beginning. And so we want to create a frame, create a sort of, that's where we're talking about partnerships. We're talking, who are the partners who are interested in telling the story? How do we do it? And there's a variety of different ways to do it in terms of, both storytelling and finding funding sources. So,
well, thank you for that. And thank you for the invitation. I look forward to seeing what develops and anxiously awaiting what we can do together.
We're counting on your continued interest and involvement, okay, and in implementation. Let me, before we run out of time, I think Randy was next, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Randy, do you want to?
Hi, good to see you, and good to see you all tonight. Thank you. Let me start with, if I can, reaction to the interpretive themes and the order in which you presented them so far. Can I suggest a more chronological order to these themes in terms of words have a lot of meaning, and when you put this plan together, people are going to look at this and they're going to say, this is how I'm trying to digest these words and interpret them. Can I suggest that the ancient geological issues of the river, did we talk about, what is it, how the river shapes us, should be the first of your themes, because it is the most ancient and geographic and natural lands related concept, right?
Right.
Then the next would be the Native Americans. The first human occupation of this land should come second, I think. And then finding home, now that's the European contact comes in. And it creates this cultural hearth, which is a mixture, which is the transplant of all these disaffected and soldiers of fortune and religious zealots who've come from Europe and other places to land here. And then they mix it up with with all of the other factors coming together, and they create these things you're now calling dividing lines, turning points, building places, changing societies. That's where the mix in the culture class comes from, as I see it from there. And then the fifth one is what you have, the
Cities.
the two cities. How do these two center cities, county seats evolve over these years, and how do we see them today? That seems to be the logical geographic and chronological perspective that might make a little more clarity to it. So there's that.
I get it. No, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to weigh in. Randy, I really like that insight, but I particularly like your finding home the disaffected soldiers of fortune and zealots who came here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, the mixture of people were absolutely, extraordinary people in kind of somewhat extremist ways. Now, let me just add to that again, if I can, on that number, whatever that number turns into. You talk about those, you have these words that are interpretations of the actual history. You talk about dividing lines, turning points. I believe you should reference Civil War, slavery, abolitionism, Underground Railroad. You say that this is what these terms mean, but you're not putting those exact words out there that talk about the critical issues that we've been dealing with and are still dealing with today in terms of racial divide. How did we get to the polarized society we are today? Underground Railroad, I'm going to sound like I'm going to be a little self-serving action here based on my current activities, but that is the catchword. That is the buzzword. That's one of the most top of mind conscious things that people are relating to on so many levels in media, in books, and travel and tourism. But you need to mention that. That word needs to be out there, and it needs. You don't need to use these kind of soft, nuanced words that you have here in item number 3, theme number 3.
Right. One of the reasons we have
back to the native lands thing, if I could say, many of us are familiar with Brenda Barrett, who was one of the icons of preservation, conservation in her post as the head of the SPO PHMC. I don't know how many of you know this, but she refers to the Susquehanna Valley, the lower Susquehanna Valley, and specifically like Washington Borough and the communities on the other side, as the Yucatan on the Susquehanna, because of the ancient Native American presence in that area that is so unexplored and needs to be elevated, as Marianne is bringing up in her discussion. I mean, the ancient things that we have, I love to see in your plan where you have some of the best petroglyphs in the eastern part of the United States. And those things are amazingly unique, rare, important, and really need to be protected at all costs. And can be such a draw for so many different people. And if I could just wrap up, if I could, please. Let's see, I'd like to echo with what John Kleinding said about the interface of municipalities. And that he points out that a lot of municipalities are not aware of what they have, number one, and they don't have the resources to take it on. And I think what John was saying was to take on a holistic, comprehensive conservation preservation approach to municipal governance in land use planning and how you approve various developments that might affect these particular resources that are so fragile and threatened in a lot of ways. I was at a downtown Lancaster Merchants Association meeting about a month ago, and Mayor Sirache was saying that of the $38 million that is available to Lancaster City in COVID relief funding, one of the open-ended facets they have to deal with is tourism and destination visitor experience enhancements to accomplish things. So what I'm suggesting here is that collectively, rather than turning over, some portion of the COVID relief money should come to the projects and ideas and needs that we're talking about that would support local municipal governance to give them the resources to do proper conservation of these valued resources in their jurisdiction. Because again, I understand they got to pay the cops and clean the streets and plow the roads, and that's pretty much, the scope of what most municipalities have to take on. This cultural heritage tourism, that's a little bit far afield for what most local government folk are dealing with, but the money seems to be there if there's a will and the right messaging, the right approach to the local governments, the county governments, to make these dollars available at the local level to do the kind of protection, preservation things we're talking about. So that's about it. All I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Randy. That's great.
Peter, we have a question. Miss Marie Forbes has been waiting patiently.
Yes, thank you very much, Marie.
Good evening. I'm from Lancaster City, and the Lancaster County Planning Commission introduced me to this project and the project team. I've been involved with scenic byways for a number of years, probably 30, and heritage tourism even longer than that. And Lancaster County and York also both have a network of beautiful scenic roads that really could be the network of routes that connect all of these places with heritage, because basically a scenic byway is a heritage trail experience that you move down a route. And so I'd like to bring that perspective to the discussion, is that we have this group of resources that I didn't hear mentioned anywhere at all, that could serve to really, really enhance the heritage tourism experience.
So I agree with you. Elizabeth and I spoke with you last week, right?
Pardon me?
Didn't Elizabeth and I speak with you last week?
Yes, you did.
So, yeah, so there are a lot of things I didn't bring up. In fact, I've got a few more slides if you want to see them.
Okay.
Yes, so what we are interested in is the character of the cultural landscape, all right? And the
Yes.
way to experience that, I mean, and aside from interpretive sites, which we've been talking about a lot, what really strikes me out is the quality of the municipalities, the boroughs, quality of the boroughs. And so you've got the boroughs, which each has its own distinctive flavor, if you will, and stories to be told. And then you have the linkages between them. And
Correct.
those are the scenic roads that you're talking about. And when you're driving those scenic roads, you're experiencing that cultural landscape, most of which, a lot of which is natural, but a lot of which is agricultural. And so preserving those farmlands. So what we would be looking to do is use those roads as a way to experience the cultural landscape. And so I think that along the lines of the conversation we had last week, we see the roads, even though we're not necessarily depending upon having a state or federal scenic byway program. What we want to do is have an interpretive road network that is a preferred route, gets you from place to place, through which you can experience the landscape, and then have people understand that landscape that they're experiencing.
Right, and consciously putting people on those routes because they are such an important part of the cultural landscape.
Yeah, and and following up a little bit of related slightly to what Randy was talking about is it's the role we want to see those scenic roads preserved as scenic roads.
Yes.
Now that's really where we come into our relationship of the plan with the county. It's
right.
the counties are interested in developing trails, scenic roads, and assisting municipalities with their development over time, and preserving community character as change continues to occur. But one of the focuses that we will hope that we can collaborate with the county on, but really through county leadership, is preserving those scenic roads and those landscapes they are related to.
Precisely, and then you basically are creating an entire network of a heritage tourism experience.
Correct.
And that's what visitors are looking for.
Correct. And we want to introduce it to visitors, but we're trying to raise the awareness of residents that these resources are valuable.
Agreed.
Okay. So I'm hoping you'll stay involved.
I will.
You are a tremendous resource, and I have a lot to offer.
Thank you. Yes, I'll stay involved.
Thank you. Let's see, what have we got, Jonathan? We've 7:30. Do we have other questions that we can answer at this time? Or in any case, we're hoping that everyone will, hopefully we can be in touch with you as we go forward at various stages and get input. And if we haven't reached out to you, if you would reach out to us with your interests, we would love to have you engaged.
I would just like to make a comment very quickly. My name is Sandra Chinchilli, and I'm the president of the Carlisle Indian School Project. And that's another Native history that Pennsylvania is the custodian of. And I had two relatives who were in the first class. And we're doing similar things there. And I just want to build on them. We're part of the scenic byways around Carlisle.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're all creating here together, whether we know it or not, is a full day, full weekend visitors experience like they have in Philadelphia. Philadelphia I live in Norristown. I see the trolleys going from downtown Philadelphia to Valley Forge Park and wherever else they go around Philadelphia. But we're creating a region, a historical region that is interesting enough to become a tourist destination. And I'm very grateful for being able to participate tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. So I guess with that, if there aren't any more questions right now, we've come up against our time frame, and we'll look forward to continued participation. Mark, do you want to say anything more?
I'll just say a word and then let Jonathan wrap up. But thank you all for participating, for absorbing all the information, but providing this great feedback. I mean, every time we have one of these conversations, I learn something, re-engage with folks, or find new information. And thank you for sharing those insights, and we'll be looking forward to incorporating them into this process. So thanks.
Yeah, my thanks as well. Really appreciated your time this evening. Thanks for carving it out and sharing your opinions, your thoughts with us. If you just listened in, as I said at the beginning, we each process information differently. And so if something occurs to you later on down the road and you want to pass it on by email or give me a phone call, or if you mask up, you can drop into the office, and we're happy to include your thoughts and your opinions, your observations on this. It's critically important, and will help ensure the success of this plan. Thank you so much for your time. We're doing this again next week, by the way, November 15th, it's Monday. We will, if you again have additional thoughts, you'd be welcome to join that as well. And you could even come halfway through, like you've seen the presentation now. It was a lot, Mark's right. And thank you, Peter, for doing that. It was a lot. You're welcome to join us again. If you don't want to see the presentation, but just want to come hear others and be a part of the conversation, you're welcome to do that as well. All you do is go to our website, the events calendar, hit that link for November 15th, and we'd love to see you again. So thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.